If you are exposed to a cold or flu, that is, if it breached, or that you stand the greatest chance of defeating that cold or flu at the level of your innate immune system, such that your adaptive immune system never even has to respond to it by creating all those specific antibodies.
Welcome back to Biohacking Insights. And in today's video, Dr. Andrew Huberman reveals what you must do so you never catch a cold again. What routine practices must change to stay away from the flu? How you can give your body the boost it needs to fight a cold? And how do you build better habits the neuroscientists would approve? Let's find out.
I've tended to catch colds or flus at a rate of about once every 18 to 24 months. What I have done and I continue to do is I pay pretty close attention to how well I'm sleeping or different life events.
Dr. Huberman's different life events include his workouts, sleep routine, daily schedule, and special occasions. He put those into his calendar, charting these things, so he's able to go back and look at the events preceding when he comes down with a cold again. For instance, if he completes 2 hard workouts in a day, something he never does, and then exposes himself to cold temperatures while traveling, especially overseas, he'll fall sick. So Dr. Huberman recommends that you pay attention to when you first start getting symptoms, to when you get over a cold or flu, and then to look at what was happening in the days before that day. The neuroscientist points out that there will be no need for hyper-precision. However, if you look at the pattern of behavior, travel, sleep, exercise, sorts of interactions you were having prior to getting a bad cold, chances are you're going to learn something interesting and be able to avoid getting a serious cold or flu, at least to some extent, going forward.
Okay, let's imagine that a cold or flu virus makes it into your system. It breaches the physical barrier of your skin and mucosal lining. Now, you have in mind all the different ways that could happen and all the different ways that could be prevented. But we are starting at a point here, a hypothetical point, whereby that cold or flu virus has made it into your body.
Believe it or not, your immune system has an incredibly sophisticated way of knowing your body cells versus other cells from foreign organisms or viruses. And when viruses such as a flu virus are detected in your body might not even recognize that it's a flu virus. It might not even recognize that it's a virus at all. It just knows that this thing that's in me is of other. It's not me. I've never seen it before, so these are not my cells. These are not the chemicals that I'm producing. Your immune system is amazing in that way, and when it occurs, your innate immune system launches a rapid response. What is that response? Once the flu makes it into your body, your innate immune system immediately launches an attack on that invader, because as soon as the virus gets into your body, it's going to start replicating as quickly as it can. When a virus gets into your body, it has one job: to replicate as much as possible in the shortest possible time. A cell usually produces all it needs with the available resources for it to grow and divide into new younger cells. What viruses do is they hijack this manufacturing process like a parasite, and they start using the cell's machinery to produce what they need to multiply, so more viruses will be created to destroy other cells. The white blood cells are your body's soldiers, and their mission, should they choose to accept, is to completely destroy these foreign invaders and abort their mission to hijack the cell's genetic machinery. Your body's making white blood cells, things like neutrophils, natural killer cells, macros. These are what we call effector cells that act as kind of a rapid response system and go to the sites that those viruses exist and the cells that they've affected and start trying to physically barrier them in, and also use specific chemical mechanisms to neutralize and kill those viruses. Again, anytime you're thinking about biology, think of the mechanical and chemical features of the response as a key component to the innate immune system.
I think now is the appropriate time to start talking about what the scientific peer-reviewed research says about how to allow your immune system to function at its best if you are exposed to a cold or flu. That is, if it breaches that physical barrier, or that you stand the greatest chance of defeating that cold or flu at the level of your innate immune system, such that your adaptive immune system never even has to respond to it by creating all those specific antibodies.
Now, fortunately, there are a lot of different things we can do to improve the function of our immune system. In fact, in winter months, we usually get the same kind of basic DIY advice circulating around online and in the press. Don't get too familiar with it that it loses value before you. So you certainly shouldn't diminish it. They are in fact the bedrock of maintaining and enhancing the function of your innate immune system. So what are those? Well, some of these will be pretty obvious. Things like getting enough quality sleep each night. We know, for instance, that if you're sleep deprived, especially if you stay up all night, but certainly even if you only get 50% or 75% of your sleep requirement, that your innate immune system is going to suffer. It's not going to be as effective at combating flu or colds. In addition to that, we know that exercise of specific type, duration, and intensity can serve to bolster the innate immune system. We also hear, and it's absolutely true, that we need adequate nutrition. If you're in a caloric deficit, for instance, trying to diet through the winter months, which many people try to do, you can place your innate immune system in a bit of a compromised state. Dr. Huberman adds that intermittent fasting or even longer duration fast have been shown in brief improvements in the function of the immune system. However, added fast or not eating enough calories to maintain body weight for many days in a row can actually compromise the function of the immune system.
And the microbiome that exists within the mucosa of the nasal passages seems to be the most effective at combating any viruses that we encounter, especially cold and flu viruses. So while ideally you would never encounter a cold or flu virus, we know that if the cold or flu viruses go in through the nasal passages, you stand the greatest chance of combating that particular cold or flu.
So what does that mean? This is where Dr. Huberman strongly advocates for nasal breathing, certainly in sleep. You want to be a nasal breather, but also throughout the day, unless you're speaking or unless you're exercising hard enough that you need to breathe through your mouth, or unless you're eating. Being a nasal breather is known to provide the right environment to keep the nasal microbiome at its healthiest and promote the diversity of microbiota in the nasal passages that can best protect you against cold and flu, and there are a growing number of studies that point to this fact. There are many studies pointing to the fact that being a nasal breather is a good thing. Consciously focusing on nasal breathing is one of the best things we can all do to combat any colds or flu that we might encounter. What we're saying is, unless you're working out hard, try to concentrate on being a nasal breather whenever you enter a room, whether you're hanging out with people, waiting for public transportation, at work, or just strolling down the hall. Dr. Huberman states that there are a bunch of other reasons to be a nasal breather as well, but this is one of the primary ones. It cuts the degree to which children and adults open themselves up to increased levels of viral infections as well as bacterial infections. The benefits of doing this very simple, zero-cost thing are incredible. All you have to do is consciously remember to breathe through your nose as opposed to breathing through your mouth. Just as an additional point about nasal breathing, when we breathe through our nose, we heat the air in a way that's very different from the way we heat the air when we mouth breathe. And by heating the air that's coming into the nasal passages, it shifts the probability that cold or flu viruses will successfully embed in the mucosal lining and infect the underlying cells to get into the other cells and tissues of our body. So it's safe to say, nose breathing for a day keeps colds and flus away.